I've been given the job of introducing somebody you all know. So I'm walking out, what am I going to say about this guy? The next speaker was actually the founding president of Family Research Council. This guy gets out of bed at 3 o'clock in the morning. He reads 27 of the world's leading newspapers, watches all the news on TV, distills all that down into 0.5% of what's truth and separates that from the propaganda, and he publishes it to you every day. So cancel your newspaper subscription. You don't need all that nonsense. Just get on his mailing list. But besides that, this guy is brilliant. He has an intellect that borders on genius. He is one of the kindest individuals I've ever met. Very gentle, outstanding husband, terrific father. And Gary, I don't remember what the other thing is you wanted me to tell him, but please help me welcome Gary Bauer.
Thank you very much. How nice of you. Thank you, Art, for that really wonderful introduction. Always great to be here, to be with our old friends and make some new friends. Can I do a personal note here real quick? I'd like you to join with me in honoring my wife, Carol. Carol and I today are celebrating our 44th wedding anniversary. So will my first wife, Carol, please stand? Where are you, honey? Okay. There you are, right over there. Thank you. Seriously, folks, pray for that lady. It's been an interesting trip. Well, look, there's that joyous anniversary, but in 48 hours we'll be observing another anniversary, which is the 15th year since the horrible attacks on the morning of 9/11, on a morning not much different than the one we're having today. That atrocity, that war crime, was committed against the people of the United States, and it was carried out by Islamic supremacists. Islamic supremacists. Ladies and gentlemen, even George Bush had a hard time bringing himself to say that often, because, as you recall, he declared war on terrorism. That was George Bush. And, of course, Barack Obama, he and Hillary Clinton, getting them to say who the enemy is almost impossible. The proud jihadists who carried out this attack believed with all of their hearts that they were pleasing Allah. Think about that. What a strange God they must worship, to think that killing, massacring civilians as they sat at their desk in the World Trade Center, that somehow this was a noble religious thing to do. So here we are 15 years later. 15 years later. And their co-religionists, the co-religionists of the people that carried out that attack, are engaged in a blood-soaked rampage across the world, leaving in their wake the beheaded, the crucified, the dismembered, the raped, the sodomized, and the enslaved. Each day's headlines are worse than the day before. Everywhere this army of Satan goes, it leaves corpses by the dozens, by the hundreds. And while the corpses pile up, while this civilization faces this existential threat, we have been cursed with leaders that at best are clueless. How do you explain Merkel in Germany, who doesn't have an unexpected influx of young Muslim migrants coming to the country? She invites them in, and 1 million of them accept her invitation, pouring across the borders. And then in the weeks and months that follow, Merkel expresses surprise and shock that German women are being molested and raped. What did she think would happen when you bring in hundreds of thousands of young men from third world countries that have been taught in their houses of worship that infidel women are all whores and you can do to them what you want to do? That's who she invited into Germany. How about in France, where after the brutal attack in Nice, families run over by a jihadist in a truck, empty carriages littered all over the beach where babies used to be sitting. And a French government official says, well, this is almost impossible to stop. The French people may just have to get used to tolerating a certain level of terrorism in our pluralistic country. And then there's President Obama. My gosh, if I shared with you all of his contributions to helping us understand what is going on, I'd be speaking through the rest of my time and the next two speakers. A few months ago, he had this really incredible insight to share with us. The president said, you, America, you Americans have more risk of drowning in a bathtub, he said, than you do of being killed by terrorists. Well, thank you, Mr. President, for that incredible insight. Churchill, he ain't. You know, I guess my reaction would be that when my bathtub starts yelling Allah Akbar and trying to kill me, I'll start worrying about baths. But right now, I'm going to worry about the people whose numbers are growing, ladies and gentlemen, who have declared war on Western civilization, Judeo-Christian civilization. Secretary Kerry, a couple weeks ago, went to a conference in Europe. Don't want to leave him out. This was a conference on the importance of open societies, and he brought the crowd, many of them journalists and government officials, to their feet in raucous applause when he said if the media would just stop reporting the terror attacks, the impact they have would be lessened. He offered no guidance on what reporters should do when they come across the mass graves. Should they not report those either? Because if you report that they just found another grave with 1,000 dead Christians in it, or Yazidis, or other religious minorities, people might go, wow, that's big news. Who killed them? And look, on any measurement of the relative strength of the radical jihadists in Western civilization, it's not even a close call, folks. We're stronger by any material measure. There's only one problem. We are infected with a moral cowardice and weakness, particularly among our elites. And faced with 6th century enemies that are willing to do anything they have to do, we could very well lose. Judeo-Christian civilization, the two pillars of that civilization, Israel and the United States, were under attack in a way that we haven't been in a long, long time. And we need leaders that understand that and are prepared to fight back. And by the way, if there's anybody that doubts this, Donald Trump and Mike Pence are those leaders. Now, you know, I'm preaching to the crowd here, but I see some folks in the media, so, you know, we'll try to do our best here to share these ideas with them too and hope that they get out of this room, these ideas. Our founders were learned men. On the way to Constitution Hall, they went there having read quite a bit. They were familiar with all the Roman classics and the Greek classics, etc. But the main thing that they read and that founded their views and where they found their ideas that they used for the American Republic was the Bible, the Holy Bible. That's where they found their ideas. And by the way, notice I said the Holy Bible. I've decided to say it always because I've been watching and listening for a couple of years now, and I can't tell you how often I hear a member of the American media on one of the networks refer to the Holy Quran. Really? And then they'll usually say, the suspect was a follower of the prophet of Muhammad, the prophet Muhammad. Really? Can you imagine a reporter saying the Holy Bible, or this person is associated with Jesus, the Son of God? Well, there's no way they would say that. But it's the prophet Muhammad. If anybody's got time after we're finished here, will somebody please tell me what he ever prophesies? Because I can't find anything. But he's the prophet Muhammad, and Jesus, if they mention his name at all, is just Jesus, and it's just the Bible, not the Holy Bible. It's unbelievable, unbelievable. Well, look, again, it was the Bible, the Holy Bible our founders read. It was the Torah and the New Testament, and there's where they found their central ideas about the country they were getting ready to build. And that central idea that they found was that we were made in the image of God, the eternal God of the Scriptures. We were made in his image, and because we were made in his image, we have dignity and value and worth. That's the central idea of America. They put it in the second paragraph of the Declaration of Independence. So it means that if you're a newborn with Down syndrome, you still have value and dignity and worth. If you're a 90-year-old, with senility, you still have dignity and value and worth. It doesn't matter what the color of your skin is or how much money you have in the bank. Now, you know the words in the second paragraph of the Declaration of Independence, and these words are like fingernails on a chalkboard to the left. That's why most of our children or grandchildren aren't being taught these words anymore. They were central to the schools when I grew up, probably when many of you grew up, but I'll guarantee you there are few schools that teach them today. We hold these truths. Now, see, that's a problem to the progressives right there. They don't believe in universal truths. They're moral relativists. If you don't believe me that they don't believe in truth, just try listening to Hillary Clinton for 5 minutes. By the way, just as an aside, I think I figured out why she's having these unfortunate coughing jags. Even she chokes on her lies. Am I doing okay, honey? Yeah, I told her it was going to be a special speech for our 44th anniversary, but we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by their government. What? Oh, no, that's wrong. No, I thought it was at the Democratic National Convention. No, endowed by their Creator. Again, the God of Abraham, the same God that hung the stars in the sky and has numbered the hairs on your head. Endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, among these the right to life. Holy cow! The right to life. Now, this has got to be big news for Hillary Clinton and her Planned Parenthood friends. But even before sonograms, the founding fathers knew that without the right to life, the other rights are kind of beside the point. The right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's the central idea of America. America was founded on the Bible. America was not founded on the Quran, and thank God for that. Now, my friends, what I just said, that America was built on the Bible and it wasn't built on the Quran, 20 years ago, everybody would have said, of course. 15 years ago, yeah, this is now considered controversial. This is now considered intolerant to say. This makes you a bigot. If you've got kids or grandkids in college or on the way to college, in a lot of classes, if they said, well, Dr. So-and-so, their professor, you know, of course, America was built on the Bible and not on the Quran, they would probably be in big trouble in a lot of American universities. They might even get sent to some sort of re-education effort to help them be more open to other cultures. Look, the reason this is so easy to say, that we weren't built on the Quran, and if we were, this would be quite a different place, is that all you have to do is look around the world, and there are dozens of places that were built on the Quran. They are not pleasant places for women or religious minorities or homosexuals. They're not even pleasant places for some Muslims, if those Muslims are considered apostates, or if they're Muslims in a minority Muslim creed in a country that's got a majority of a different type of Muslim. Is it a coincidence that 7 out of the top 10 abusers of human rights in the world are Islamic countries? That would be an odd thing to happen if there wasn't a relationship to the fact that they're Islamic countries. Let's see if I could put even a finer point on it. If you are a Muslim baby in the womb, getting ready to be born, there is no greater blessing that you could experience than being born to a Muslim mother living in the West, in Judeo-Christian civilization. Your chances for a decent life, your chances of practicing your religion without fear of being blown up, your chances as a young Muslim woman to have all the full rights and dignity that are accorded to you as a human being are much greater if you're born in the heartland of America than if you're born in the heartland of Islam. Now, Donald Trump has been crucified because a number of months ago he said that we ought to have a pause in Muslim immigration to the United States. And it took about 10 minutes for the president and, quite frankly, a number of Republican leaders to run to a microphone and basically say, that's not who we are, that's not our values. Well, they're wrong. Teddy Roosevelt enforced a law during his presidency that prohibited immigration to the United States of anybody who believed in polygamy, promoted polygamy, or lived in a country that practiced polygamy. Who do you think he was trying to keep out of the country? Episcopalians? How about Jimmy Carter, that well-known right-wing bigoted extremist, right? Jimmy Carter, who the guy I worked for, Ronald Reagan, clobbered on election day. Jimmy Carter, after the Iranian Revolution, announced that effective immediately, there would be no more immigration from Iran into the United States. But that's not all. Jimmy Carter went on national TV and said, there are 25,000 Iranian students attending our universities. You have 30 days to report to your closest immigration center with your papers. He expelled thousands of Iranian university students from the United States. That was weakling left-wing Democrat Jimmy Carter. And today, taking that common sense position gets you attacked the way Trump has been attacked. It's unbelievable what's happening in this country. Donald Trump has done a little bit more on this proposal. Now he says that he's going to really zero in on a handful of countries, and that's fine. Countries where there's a lot of terrorist activity, etc. But then he said something else that, again, set people off on a tirade. He said, we're going to start having an ideological test. Of course we should. The Pew Research Center did a study of the Muslim world and found that it is permeated with hatred of Jews, of Christians, rejection of religious liberty. Why would we import that to the United States? I hope Donald Trump has a chance in the presidential debates to turn to Hillary Clinton and say, Secretary Clinton, you say you're pro-women, but you want to bring in hundreds of thousands of young men that hate women. You say you're pro-gay, but you want to bring in hundreds of thousands of people that think that gays ought to be killed. You say you're on the side of America's Jews, but you want to bring in millions of anti-Semites. And this is modern-day progressivism. Well, look, let me try to wrap this up. Let me commend an article to you. It came out this week, written by an anonymous author. The author says that they are the head of a conservative group in town. It's not clear whether it's a man or a woman. The title of the article is The Flight 93 Election. And you remember Flight 93, the plane, the hijacked plane that came down in Pennsylvania. The point of this author was that this country is the equivalent of that hijacked plane right now. We're heading to a disaster unless we can get control of the cockpit again. And then maybe, just maybe, we'll have a chance. Now let me just take you for a second to that morning on that flight. There were 40 passengers. 4 of them were hijackers. In the middle of that flight, those passengers found themselves in the middle of a war that they didn't even know was going on when they woke up that morning. The flight attendants were dead, their throats cut. The hijackers had got into the cockpit and killed the pilot and the co-pilot. They were now in control of the plane. The passengers gathered in the back of the plane. Frightened people, people just like you. College kids going back to school. Businessmen on an early morning trip. Families on a late summer vacation. What should we do? A good number of them said, we should get back in our seats. That's what we should do. The plane has to land. There'll be negotiations. That's our best chance to get out of here. But other passengers said, no, you're dead wrong. I was able to make a call home. My wife told me the country's under attack. Other planes have been hijacked. This plane's not going to land. It's going to be used as a weapon. And even with that news, there was still dissent. There was still disagreement. Oh, that can't be. She must have misunderstood. No, that couldn't be happening. So these Americans at the back of the plane disagreeing. What do you think happened next? One of them said, I think we should vote. Can you imagine? Everybody in favor of fighting back, raise your hand. Everybody that thinks we should take our seats, raise your hand. And the guys that wanted to fight back won the vote. And so those passengers, again, we know this because of cell phone messages they left, calling home, I love you, tell the kids I love them. We're getting ready to fight these guys. I don't know what's going to happen. These passengers took whatever they could as weapons. There was one flight attendant still alive. She had a pot of boiling water as her weapon. People had utensils left over from breakfast. There was a guy on the plane named Todd Beamer, a Christian guy, a graduate of Wheaton University. He supposedly yelled, "Let's roll." And they ran down the aisle into the teeth of men armed with box cutters. I can't imagine. They overwhelmed those men, but they still weren't able to land the plane. But they took the only shot they had. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a Flight 93 election. This may be our last shot. It's time to roll. It's time to run down the aisle and save Western civilization. If we make the effort, I think with the grace of God, we can prevail and ensure that your children and your grandchildren and mine and Carol's will have a chance, just as we did, to live in a shining city upon a hill. May it be so. God bless you.